missed all that good B-roll talking about the Joe Rogan podcast, but here we are, season 2 of the Anvil Hour Podcast. Today we have a reoccurring guest here. This is Jaerett, the CEO and founder of Eyes and Ears Creative, which is an adventure multimedia company out here in Denver, Colorado. So we served together in United States military. We're in Ranger Battalion. We actually were in different battalions. I was up at 2nd. You were down at RHQ. So we went to RASP, which is Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, together. So that's where we initially got to meet each other. You guys can find all that info back on episode 1 and 2. Kind of the cool thing is we reconnected as friends and coworkers here at the beginning of this year in 2023. And then we had a pretty cool idea that we started talking about, which will lead us into kind of the main topic about today, which is the idea of soft trek. So let's start back from the beginning. So let's go back about 6 months or so. So a little bit after we spent some time together out on the West Coast, we kind of talked about the idea of hiking the Colorado Trail. So I shared some stuff with you, kind of my initial vision for it. What was your initial thought process of what it meant to take on the Colorado Trail? What did you think we were going to be getting out of it? What did you hope to get out of it personally?
Yeah, so initially you approached me and you're like, hey, I have this idea. We can, for like soft trek, like you're saying, veteran transition organization, taking dudes directly from when they get out, get them on the trail as like a headspace. Like, because that's the biggest thing is like when you get out, a lot of people are pressuring you into, and it's not a bad thing, but there's a lot of like either pressure and you immediately need to go in the workforce, you immediately need to go into college. But I think the biggest thing is like, depending on how long you've been away from honestly normal society, like being in the Army is one thing, being in the military is one thing. And then you add on like being in special operations, that's another thing, or like around a lot of very intense people. So then you kind of become a pretty intense person, and it's a little bit different integrating back into normal society. And so just having the ability to do something where you would spend 6 years, 5 years, 10 years doing very intense, like high operational tempo deployment, and then getting out in nature, doing a longer hike like the Colorado Trail, which is 486 miles or 491 miles, doing the Appalachian Trail, which is
2,198 miles, I believe.
Yeah, or doing the CDT, doing the PCT, doing something T, probably, right? But yeah, just being out in nature, having a goal, an objective of like, I need to complete this, while also meeting a lot of people from different walks of life. It's awesome. And especially like reconnecting with nature and getting out there. And I can't remember the science exactly behind it, but like being outside nature, the reoccurring patterns, the fractals, it definitely does something positive to your mind. And if I had that little scientific paper, I'd definitely share it with you, but I don't. So yeah, Micah was like, hey man, I want to make this, do this veteran nonprofit. Are you interested? And I was able to, it was going to take a month approximately. And I said yes. So we knocked out the Colorado Trail, all collegiate west, 491 miles, August 2nd to September 3rd for me. But Micah did not want to spend the last night sleeping. So he's like, dude, I'm going to finish this 9.5 miles at like, I can't even remember what time we got to. Yeah. How many miles? Do you know how many miles you did that day?
33 is the longest one on trail for that trip. Yeah.
That was the last day. Yeah. You were just, why? Yeah. You were just like, I can't stand this. I gotta get done with it.
Well, obviously we're going to get into some of this as we kind of dissect it chronologically, but yeah, I think I was at the end of the trail. I had a personal goal of trying to do it in 30 days. And so I really wanted to hit that 30-day window, the second to the second.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think you're just frustrated that there were so many people camping at that last spot, and there was literally nowhere else to camp, and you were just like, you know what, fuck this. Like that was like, all right, dude.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we'll get into that. So we had an idea to put in some work ourselves for the benefit of our fellow veterans, right? So we had an idea of starting a veterans nonprofit, and then it wasn't really until we stepped out on trail that Soft Trek was born. I think it took myself getting back into that environment. I'd hiked the Appalachian Trail prior, so I knew exactly what I was getting in for. And I knew that it would take a little bit of time to kind of get into that trail mindset, so to say. And I think we did see that. But Soft Trek was born during the hike itself. So when we kind of break down what Soft Trek is going to be, So we're talking about a veteran nonprofit that will be initially born out of AAG, and then we're going to separate it off, and it'll be its own entity once we can prove concept through Asymmetric Alliance Group. So the goal of SoftTrek is going to be to ideally capture special operations veterans during that transition window. So when I think of what other services are currently offered to veterans as far as like hiking expedition related stuff, you're usually waiting a couple of years on a wait list to get onto there. So one of the big things that we have talked about is kind of that formidable time, which is the transition. So it's from that halfway through the day, all of a sudden you sign out and that's it. You give over your CAT card and now you're out of the military, and now what's next? One of the things you had talked about when we were talking about the initial idea was giving guys time to think, right? You become something in the special operations community, especially in a place like Ranger Regiment, and to successfully reintegrate yourself back into normal society, there's a little bit of growth and death that needs to happen, right? You need to let go of the person that you had to become to do well in the military, because that person does well there and has a really hard time doing well on the outside, right? The problem is, and I found this with my own experience, is when you don't have that time, you're kind of forced into what are my options? And coming from a place like Ranger Regiment with such a high op tempo and requirements for the day-to-day job, a lot of guys don't have the time or the ability to try to line something up, let alone they don't even realize what they're looking for on the outside, right? So my personal goal with SoftTrek is to give guys 4 to 6 months of time to decompress, regrow themselves as a new asset to society, work on the issues or any wounds that came from the military, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Physical stuff's going to be its own thing. The big thing that we're working towards is that mental break, right? So giving guys the time to go find themselves, to spend some time in nature. A huge thing for me that I saw on the Appalachian Trail, and we'll talk about that we saw in the Colorado Trails community from other citizens, right? I think coming out of the military in general, you have a huge chip on your shoulder. Coming out of a special operations community, even larger chip. And one of the byproducts of that big chip on your shoulder is the assumption that no one else will understand you, that no one else can help you, that no one else wants to understand you or wants to help you. The reality is that's just not wrong. There's plenty of good, solid, patriotic Americans that are here just to give a helping hand to another veteran. So that's the goal of SoftTrek, is to give guys to serve the service member, right? Give them the opportunity to decompress the right way before they're back to their families, before they're back to the corporate grind or whatever it may be. I mean, for me personally, when I was on the Appalachian Trail, my desires in life changed dramatically.
Did you do the AT right after you got out, or how much of a separation from when you ETS'd to when you did the AT?
So it was almost 9 months. So I got out in August and I started on the trail in the end of May of the following year. So when I got out, and we talked about this on a prior episode, but my brother was at home with terminal cancer. So I spent my first handful of months out of the military going through that process and laying my brother to rest. After that, I spent another 5 months-ish in Colorado. The Appalachian Trail was something I had set out to do prior to joining the military. It was a plan of mine all the way up until this stuff happened with my brother. And so I didn't really understand or know or even care if I or would I do the Appalachian Trail. But the opportunity presented itself, and I had done all the planning, had purchased all the gear ahead of time. And so I was ready to step out. So went out in May, completed the trail in just under 5 months, and then moved out to the West Coast and started that whole process of the next chapter of my life. So it was really good for me. The Appalachian Trail, there was so much stuff that had gone in my life that was undealt with from the military, from deployment, and then everything I had to go through with my brother. And so the time on the trail, I don't think people put a strong enough value on seclusion and forced seclusion. So there's times on the trail where you don't have service for 2 or 3 days. And what you realize when you don't have something as simple as your cell phone at hand is how much we distract ourselves from our issues. So there was a lot of deep thought that I fell into on the Appalachian Trail. And that was one of the things we had talked about a lot on the Colorado Trail, was getting into that mindset of that deep reflection. And, and we'll get into it, but on the Colorado Trail, I was going through that, right? I was rehashing a whole bunch of stuff, and it makes it a very formidable event that you're in. And I think that's one of the big pluses for guys coming out of the soft community, is it's a challenge in every aspect. It's physically challenging, it's mentally challenging, it's logistically challenging, financially challenging. Everything that could be a challenge is there, but the benefit is way different than all the other challenges guys have been dealing with prior to that. So you think about in the military, the adversity you go through is for the job, it's for the unit, it's for the mission. You come last. When we get into transition, a lot of veterans have done exactly what they signed up for and sacrificed something. It could be physical. We both know plenty of guys that have given their lives or given parts of their bodies. But outside of the physical, visual stuff, most guys I know gave something, and it was in their heart or in their head, right? So there's a big emotional, psychological toll that happens. And I think it's something that everyone's happy to pay. But guess what? It still has a cost. And the cost comes afterwards. I think a lot of guys think that the cost is happening in the moment. Hey, I'm away from my family. I got to go on deployment. I have to go to this school. I got to make it through the selection course, whatever it may be. But the reality is they're not working on what's changing in them. You don't have the time. A lot of the times guys feel selfish about trying to focus on themselves. So that time that you have in that transition space can either be given back to you, which is what it needs to be, or you'll just redirect it to the next mission. And that's great to have that mission forward mindset, but guys burn out. I think me and you both have dealt with that, and guys don't realize how close they are to burnout right as they're getting out. They just don't realize it, because you can run on fumes in the soft community, live off literally dipping energy drinks. But when you get out, the silence hits you, and the lack of work hits you, and the lack of purpose hits you. And all of the demons and the darkness that's in your head and in your heart, now it comes and it says time to pay. And that's where we see high veteran suicide rate. That's where we see substance abuse in veterans. There's all kinds of issues that end up coming from that, right? So Soft Trek, born on the trail, we came up with the idea and the name and kind of the more solid foundation for what we hope it to be. And then we started sharing the story with people on the trail. And I think one of the things that surprised me was how receptive people were and how supportive. And I wish I had more set up for people to follow at the beginning. But that's all right. That's where we're at now. So
yeah, I mean, we were just doing like a proof of concept, really, pretty much like that was the goal, right? Was gather content for a product, to show future prospects, investors, all that kind of stuff. And I think the biggest thing too, like you're talking about, kind of like what you lose after you leave, like the soft community or something like that, and like a reoccurring thing. Like I'm on the subreddits, like the veteran subreddit and everything. Literally everyone's thing is like a lack of community, right? Like, that's what it's so hard, like going from, like a private to an NCO, you're in the barracks, with the boys, like everyone's going through like the same struggle, the same trauma, that kind of stuff. Like trauma, and it's cool trauma though, you know what I mean? It's fun trauma bonding, it's sick. But like once you leave, everyone's very individualized, independent. They're kind of just doing their own thing. And depending on like what your family's like, what your friend group, if you're able to maintain that, like a good friend community. Like for me, like when I got out, I was bouncing around a lot, and I was like, holy smokes, I had no idea that it's so hard to make friends when you get out. Like, don't get me wrong, I had all my great friends from the military, like my family from the military, and also like my friends and families from back home. But those are like phone call relationships. Like when I first got out, I went to Orlando for like a 10-month motorcycle program, and I was like, holy smokes, like pretty lonely, And I think that's what, like when you do, like that's what hiking is, right? When you're doing like a longer hike, you start to build community, you start to build relationships with people, because it is like a shared mission that you guys are trying to do, a shared task. And it's hard. It's physically hard. You're putting in miles, you're carrying weight, so that's how you really become close to people.
Yeah. I would say with that I think I agree 100%. But on the flip side of it, I also think that something with the trail is to help teach you to be alone to an extent, right? Because I think in the military, you get very comfortable being so close. I mean, look at the barracks environment, right? There's no apartment complex that houses people that close to each other that are that tight. And so you have this crazy bond where you can just open your door and there's probably somebody out in the hallway, or you can go knock on somebody across the street or across the hallway, whatever it may be. And that's not what you're going to find in normal civilian life. Because when you're in the military, everyone has the same job, same mission, same work call, same everything. You get out into the normal world, your parents, your siblings, your friends from back home, they all have their own lives. They're all operating on their own schedules. And now you need to learn to do the same thing. So I think there's a purpose to, yes, refine that community, find that family, but also to learn to be independent once again. Because I think the military does a really good job of making guys team players, not independent team players, right? Which is part of that job. That's what you kind of have to be able to do, right? So let's talk about, so we covered why did we hike in the first place? We covered what were we doing for soft trek? And now we've covered kind of what is the purpose of soft trek, right? It's to serve the service member, to ideally give that special operations veteran time to refine himself and reintegrate back into society in the proper role, not just the first one that came his way or the comfortable one. I think that's another big thing with the military community is guys get very comfortable in that environment and they don't know something else. And so business might not be appealing to them. A completely different style of work might sound weird to them because they're used to a certain culture, and being that independent person again will help you fit into different communities a little bit easier, I feel like. So let's go ahead and just chronologically start walking ourselves through the trail. So obviously we're going to be sharing stories as we go, personal reflections and things like that. But the remainder of this podcast will be servicing the interested veteran, the family members, the military itself, and then also the hiking community, right? So we're going to be sharing a lot of the logistics that we learned about, gear, supplies, all that type of stuff on the trail as well. So let's start August 2nd, 2023, Waterton Canyon.
Yeah, definitely. I went and I did the ultimate, hey, you probably shouldn't do this maneuver. Because like for me, like last time I really went on a hike, if you want to even call it a hike, was working at Ranger School. Like I think the last time was pretty much like walking swamps in Florida phase with like really nothing in my ruck, just enough to make it look like you had
a couple pillows.
Dude, honestly, we did the boat movement, and I had one of the small like mini rucks, like the Vietnam style, but like really small. Mm-hmm. And literally all I had was just a Flick like fighting load carrier with my camera gear on the front, and then I had like nothing in the back, water, snacks, my ops core, I think. And it was so funny when I got off the boat, like one of the Ranger students grabbed my bag and he just did are you fucking kidding me? And I'm like, bro, come on. I'm just out here for one day chill. I remember that like when I was a Ranger student, then you actually feel one of the RI's back and you're like, dude, come on. But it's like, it doesn't matter, you know? But yeah, so the mistake I made was I did not do I just sent it. I was like, all right, cool. I don't feel like buying a lot of stuff. So I was using my backpack my backpack was completely fine, or my rucksack or hiking bag, whatever. It was a Deuter from like, I think it was like over 10 years old, or 8 to 10 years old. And I was just like, for my camera setup, because I was carrying a Sony A7S II, a 28 to 75 millimeter lens, like with all the fixins, so all the ND filters, polarizers. I had my Air 2S drone, with batteries and everything, and the whole ecosystem for charging everything. And then on top of that, the way I was using my Flick, my fighting load carrier, to carry things, and yeah, dude, it was bad. I was severely overweight in comparison to like other people, and just the setup was whack. It like that setup's cool for like short movements, like working like at Ranger School, where like depending on like what you're doing, for me personally, when I was there, I was only going out for like 1 to 3 nights maybe, so it made sense then. But yeah, dude, it was bad. I like going, like, if I had to do it again, for sure, before the next big hike, even now, like knowing what I know now, and like even though I had my gear dialed in at the end, I'm going to do like 2 days, like 2 days, 20 miles or something, just to like refuel out my gear. Because my setup at first was whack, dude. It was bad, man.
Well, I think that taught us, very similar to the military. It's like you become such a expert in your kit.
Yeah.
Right? You will alter tiny little things over and over and again to make a belt fit the right way, to make a strap come in the right way. The same thing applies to a lot of other aspects of life where it's like the diligence to the gear is going to help take you the distance.
Yeah, and that was one of those things where maybe the ego was out of whack, because I was like, oh, dude, I'm fine. This is going to be easy. And then it's like, dude, well, because also the first day I remember being like, holy shit, because I had all that stuff, all that camera gear, the drone equipment, everything, and then I'm trying to keep pace off of you, and you were pretty dialed in because you did the AT. So as far as your gear setup goes and everything, dude, the first day I was like, oh my god, because I think the first day we didn't even do, like, compared to like what we ended up doing, it wasn't that many miles on day one. But I was trying to keep pace with you and like also film while keeping pace with you with my fucked up setup. I was smoked, dude. I remember, I think at the end of the day, like towards the end, I was getting like a quad cramp. You know what I mean? And I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shock, right? And then the next few days after that, it's like anytime you start a hike like that or just go camping in general, the likelihood that you get good sleep is pretty low, especially on our first day when it was torrential downpour immediately at nighttime, which was showing us all the issues in our gear. You were in a hammock at the time.
Yeah, I was in a hammock that I was using from Light Fighter. Shout out. It's a good hammock, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, dude. For this kind of thing, you need a tent, I feel like. Unless you're like super into hammocks and they make a lot of sense to you, like a tent's the way to go, especially like for waterproofing. Because the problem is, like, sure, the tent, the hammock, the rain fly up and everything, but then the rain's like, yeah, I'm going to go this way. Like there was literally like rain coming in from the side too. So I just didn't, that just wasn't set up well. And my tent was coming in like day 3. I got it that's kind of like why we took a break at Bailey. So I was able to get my tent and unfuck my setup. Yeah. But yeah, it was so funny. Like literally like day 1, it was your classic, like, all right, cool. Like rain on you. It's like, that's the way it's supposed to be, like, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I got a couple talking points from week 1. So talk a little bit about the gear. Obviously we just covered that. So let's talk mindset, right? So when I stepped out on trail, I had a pretty good idea of the mind shift that would eventually happen. I don't remember how long it took to get there, probably about a week-ish. You got to kind of get comfortable out there, talking to other people, putting in the miles, and then having some of that deep thought for a few days on end to get comfortable with it. But my mindset going in was very distracted. I had a lot of other stuff going on in my life, had just moved, had just got engaged, was juggling some family stuff. And so I actually feel like I stepped out on the trail pretty distracted and was really looking forward to falling into some of that like seclusion type of thing. So I feel like my mindset was eager and it really wanted that, but it took me a little while to channel it in type of thing. So what was your mindset? Kind of just, okay, we're on the trail outside of the miles and stuff like that. Like what were you hoping to get for in that first day?
Well, I think like based on all the movies and media you see around it, I just assumed like what from Wild with Reese Witherspoon. I actually never even saw the movie, just the trailer. But I was like, dude, all these people out here probably damaged, probably fucked like 8 guys while they were married. Is that what happened in the movie? I think something like that. She like became like a complete whore. I don't know. That's probably wrong. It's probably like actually she was very damaged, and that's very misogynistic of you.
Could be,
but. Fuck it, dude, I'll take it. So I just like went out there assuming like, oh, like everyone's out here to find their truth or something.
It's funny you say that because your attitude was very, like I say I was eager and you were kind of like, I don't want to say standoffish, but more like, I'm not one of you hippies. Because I'd like kind of tell you like, oh, here's what's going to happen. And you're like, that might be for you. That ain't me. I feel like that first week you were, I mean, let's talk about like the trail names, right?
Oh my gosh, trail names. Like, yeah, the whole, like, yeah, so you pretty much get a nickname on the trail. And at first I was like, okay, you just call me Jaerett. Yeah, I don't know. I never really bought into it exactly. I think I get it. I get it. I understand. They can definitely be cool. But to me, it was just so odd. Like, it was a little odd when, like, for me, like, how do nicknames work? You normally hang out with someone for a little bit, they do something dumb, and then, like, oh, your nickname's, I don't know, Foggy Watch.
Yeah.
That's actually what we called one of my old privates in Ranger Regiment. He was like, why do people get cool nicknames? Or something like that. I was like, okay, you want a nickname? And he just had like one of those Casio watches that you probably have through basic AIT, RASP, and it was Foggy. We're like, all right, your Fox Whiskey, Foggy Watch. Like, he's like, dude, that's not even cool. I'm like, dude, you asked for it. And that, I don't know, for me, like, nicknames that are earned, right? Like, something happens and what's a cool nickname?
River Rat.
That's the one I got. That one's cool as hell. But like, I guess what was strange to me is people are coming to this trail where we've never met each other. It's a new trail. And they're introducing themselves as their nicknames from their trail names from their past trails, which I get it. Like, you don't want to be confusing. Like, everyone has a name and then they keep it. Once they get it, they keep it. But I don't know. To me, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I'd respect it more if you earned it on that trail.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I'm probably wrong, but this is just my opinion.
I think that's how it goes. And the Colorado Trail, is a short one, right?
Yeah.
And those trail names, there's a whole lot of reasons behind it. Some of it's like anonymity. Some of it is as simple as how many Jaeretts are you going to meet on a trail? Probably a couple, especially a long one. And so it's to help you stand out.
Yeah.
And then obviously part of it is like kind of a fun, like you're saying, somebody makes a dumb choice or something, which is where the majority of those trail names come from. But
like for instance, like one of our buddies, Gravity.
Shout out to Gravity. His real name's Ryan, but his nick. So he comes up. He's like, "Hi, I'm Gravity." He sounds like that too, and he's like a very intelligent, like hyper intelligent dude. Just knows science. He's a very science kind of guy. Go figure with the name Gravity, because he got it from like making an argument. But he was one of those guys who would just be like, actually, like, you'd say something like, hey, we're 5.8 miles. He's like, actually, it's 5.78 or something. And you're like, dude, shut the fuck up. And so, like, for me, I would be like, dude, we should name, like, his nickname would have been Actually or something like that. Then also we met, like, Ansley, the girl. She's like, I haven't gotten a cool nickname yet. And we like learn more about her, and she has like a snake, and we're like, oh, dude, snake bitch or whatever, or Slytherin or something, Like, I don't know. I think for me, my favorite nicknames are the ones that are based off of like dogging on somebody a little bit, because I think that's I definitely enjoy that kind of humor. I mean, that's kind of like kind of talking shit to each other a little bit. Like that's I enjoy that, like. I'd say some other ones some other people with nicknames are trail names that we met, but I don't want to bully anybody. So talking about the trail names, right? We kind of brought it up to be like, where were your reservations at? So part of being on the trail is living the trail life in a sense, right? If you truly want to find some of that deep peace and reconnect yourself to civilization, you're going to have to kind of play by whatever the rules are, so to say, and I personally, when I started the AT, same thing, very adverse to that side of it, and then saw why that's there.
Yeah, but you were anti trail name this time for yourself, because your trail name was Anvil at the AT, and then you got a little shy. You're like, I'm just Micah. Was it because I was harassing about it? Was that why?
I'm sure that is part of it, but I think I also felt like if you're going to get a trail name, get a new one. Don't show up in because I felt like that.
You agree with me a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because that name was given to me on the AT, and then I'm like, well, if I bring it over here, I'm basically naming myself that. You know what I mean? Which is kind of weird.
It's kind of weird. Yeah. That's the vibe I was getting. I just feel like it needs to be earned there,
But it's just one of those random things, right? With that type of...
And then gravity was saying, and like, yeah, it's the whole continuity argument, where if you're doing multiple trails, multiple people are going to know you because it's a very small community, as we saw. I mean, shoot, the first night, we ran into 4 people that you met on the AT. Day 1.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Small world. So it's like, so gravity was saying, yeah, it's about continuity. I get it. I understand it. I don't necessarily agree, though.
Yeah, I mean, you came around though, right? And I think that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is just the mindset at the beginning versus the mindset at the end, right? So it's just one of those, I think for me, I enjoyed watching you let go of some of that, because it was ego. And I had to do the same thing when I was on the AT, right? Where you want to stand out in a sense. And so you'll actually go against the grain by not doing certain things that everyone else is doing like that. So anyways, that was just a point that I was going to make about kind of the mindset and stuff that had changed.
But yeah, I didn't get a trail name until
we were in Salida.
Yeah, so pretty much we were in Salida. We met a group of people, super cool people, the night before, going out partying, drinking. And in Salida, there's a river that goes right through the town. And super cool. I don't even know what the river is, but you could Google it. But so we're just hanging out, just chilling. It was one of those rivers where it's like, I mean, we're also kind of out there. So we had like a couple horses come through, like a couple farmers, like their horses were drinking from the water. We're just chilling about waist deep, drinking a couple beers. And, it feels nice. Like our feet are pretty busted at this point. And I'm just kind of sifting my feet in the sand. Like, oh man, giving myself a little massage. And with my right foot, waist deep water, there's a little current going. I'm looking upstream, just all of us are chatting, having a great time, drinking some beers. I'm like, damn, dude, this is a really soft spot. What is going on here? And all of a sudden, I can feel something float. Whatever I was touching starts floating up my leg. I look down right in between my crotch. It floats to the top of the water. Is a rat. Either a rat or, I don't know. I didn't get a good look at it, but I was just like, oh, shit. And then everyone else got a good glimpse of it. And then it proceeded to float down the river. And so there's like children playing behind us. It's like, all right, guys, have fun. But yeah, so that was kind of like the whole like river rat idea. I mean, it was cool to be like, you could call me. No one really ever called me River Rat, though. You know what I mean?
Well, they called you Drone Boy.
Yeah, or Drone Boy, because your boy hiked with a drone the entire time. What's up? Crashed one.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Yeah, but I mean that also came down to it too. Like when it came down to like gear, layout, equipment, like I was really like struggling to keep pace with you. Because I was like, fuck, I'm trying to keep pace. I have all this gear and I'm trying to document everything too. And then I can't remember how long until I was like, dude, we need to cross load. I can't, like this is fucking me up. So stuff like that, just should have been done probably a little bit sooner. Yeah.
All right. Next couple talking points. So we have 3 things that we're going to talk about in week 1. Number 1 is don't go home. So what does that mean? So this is advice to other hikers that might be hiking in the state that they reside in, as well as kind of just some advice to when you're in that type of challenging environment and trying to be immersed in it, what can pull you out of that inadvertently?
Yeah, I think we were so close, right? Like I'm living at the time in Denver. You're in this Colorado Springs. We started in Waterton Canyon, which is, I think it was like 25 minutes from where I was living. And so kind of we set everything up like for the first week or so. So the first week and some change. So we did like 3 days. Then we got picked up from one of my buddies in Bailey's, went back, did a refit, and then got driven out the next day by your brother, Phil. Did another few days, made it to Breckenridge, and then we got picked up by your mom and got back. And our idea was like, oh, we'll do this to save cash. Like it financially, logistically, it made sense. But it takes you out of everything. Like literally like the days that were supposed to be a 0 or like a Nero, like going home. And by 0, that means 0 mileage. And Nero is near 0, where you barely do anything that day, barely any mileage that day. And like, yeah, like we get home and you start going on the computer, you start checking emails, you start redialing in with people, places. like trying to do work, you get kind of like, it takes away from the experience. I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
If I can avoid it, I will never do that again. I'd rather pay higher prices to buy like gas station refits than spend all that time going back. Cause like if we would have stayed there in Breckenridge that first night, cause we did do a Nero and Breck at the lakeside, the Fireside Inn. And that was awesome, dude. We had a great time, and just like we could have been a little bit closer, a little bit faster with some of the other people on the trail that we started off with.
Yeah. So I think the big lesson is if you're chasing a challenge like that, that's an immersion-based obstacle, stay immersed, right? And same, like we did it for financial purposes and logistical purposes. We're like, why wouldn't we utilize resources?
It wasn't necessary.
It wasn't necessary.
It wasn't. But we thought it was.
Well, in our head, it made sense before we started. And then after, we stepped out of Breck, we had a couple more times that friends or family supported us by bringing us stuff, but we didn't leave again.
All right, so the camera shut down. So you were talking about logistics.
Yeah. So sorry, technical difficulty. The logistics, it seemed like it would make sense. It was helpful, but it was more distracting and again, pulled us out of that immersion state. So the lesson to be learned is if you are near family and friends, utilize them sparingly because it's just going to pull you out of that immersion piece. So next talking point, this one we'll just jump through real quick, just injuries, right? So again, for the hiking community, what type of injuries are you going to start off with? So first thing you'd said is, having like some cramps. I think that was something that was happening pretty regularly at the beginning, like quad cramping, right? For me, I had like a weird heel abrasion that happened from, I had a brand new pair of shoes. I'd only put like 25 miles on them, but I'd used that model before, so to say. So I felt comfortable with it, but it ended up being problematic because we go from, maybe I'm going out on a couple hour hike to now we're hiking 8 to 10, 11 hours a day. And so I ended up getting like a weird bursitis abrasion on my heel. And so I had to, as you saw, we had to do all kinds of stuff to keep the shoe off of my heel. So I was cutting up pieces of my foam sit pad and putting it in my shoe. Ultimately, I ended up having to hike in Crocs for pretty much almost a week just to give it time to heal. And then once we got past that piece and were able to take a day or so off, it ended up healing. But injuries are going to be something that are going to happen, especially at the beginning, because it's hard to train for 11 hours of movement, poor diet, and bad sleep, right? So stuff's going to start compounding. Eventually, you'll get the trail legs. You'll get comfortable sleeping out there in the woods. But that first week or so can be pretty rough. I remember on the Appalachian Trail, I got really bad blisters the first like 10 days because I just started off and it was like 6 days of rain at the beginning. So I just walked through rain for a few days and just got really terrible blisters on my feet. So what other things did you deal with at the beginning, and then anything else? I mean, obviously like back pain, shoulder pain, all that kind of stuff, but any other things that stick out kind of more than that?
Yeah, I think at first I was hitting, I had some quad cramps, and then my fighting load carrier that I was wearing, this is like day 1, day 2, like really bad in the shoulders. It was adding up for sure. So when I was able to, I guess that is one benefit, is like, it's okay to have your family pick you up or your friends if you never did those 2 test days or whatever, where you can actually dial in your gear. Because for me, that was a savior, because I then switched to my fanny pack and a Peak Design attachment. And there's like a Peak Design quick shoe that you attach to the front of your like backpack strap. Dude, game changer. I wish I would have used that in the military. That thing is awesome. Like, sure, it was. I think the biggest thing too is like, I don't want to spend a lot of money on this. I was gonna try to recycle all my gear. But dude, there's some stuff, just buy it, man. Like, yeah, there was some stuff I was just like, I gotta.
When you look at the hiking community, the vast majority of people are doing it on a budget. But when you think about, say, spending a month right now, most people will have bills still at home if they're doing like a shorter hike. But say, take the transitioning veteran that's getting out. He shouldn't have a lot of things tying him down at all, right?
If he's single.
So as far as the financial piece, one of the things that we're trying to do through Soft Trek is to be able to cover that initial gear purchase so that the soldier, the veteran, can get the right type of gear. Because if you look at a gear loadout for a through hike, you're talking $3,000 to $5,000, because we have to get primo lightweight backpacks, primo lightweight tents, sleep pads, sleeping bags, the shoes that you wear, the clothes that you wear. Everything is going to be premium so that you can be premium. You could go do these trails in a pair of Crocs and just a fanny pack. But if you have the right pieces of gear, it really does help you go the extra mile, literally. And we saw that when we started to dial in a lot of that gear for you. Does it help that?
Yeah, that was the biggest transition for me. Like once I switched over, it was actually I think I had like a little notebook where I journaled every single night, and I was like, day 4, I'm actually enjoying this for the first time. And that was after I made all those gear switches. But like, yeah, back to injuries. The biggest thing was for me, started off with some quad cramps, whatever, got over it. And then eventually like the knees started becoming an issue, especially going downhill. Like I remember there were parts where I was going downhill backwards to like alleviate some of the pressure. And I think that probably, once I got my like trail legs, it's either I got the trail legs or my body was like, hey man, like we're giving you indicators that you're in pain, but you're just not doing anything about it. So I guess we're going to stop sending you those signals to your brain. And then the biggest thing for me is I tried 2 different pairs of shoes. The first one was an ultra like mid-top hiking shoe. Felt great, good grip, stability, awesome. But as far as the thickness of the shoe, I think it was 22 to 25 millimeters, which is okay, but I could really feel it shrinking quickly. So then I tried because a lot of people are rocking tennis shoes out here, right? Or running shoes. So I tried the Ultra Olympus 5s, really thick. I think 32, 35 millimeter as far as the thickness goes. And they felt great like that. But a lot of the trail going southbound from Waterton Canyon to Durango, you're kind of at, if you can imagine your feet, like your left foot is going to be a little bit lower because there is a little slant on the trail. Like there's a little slope. So it was putting my right foot at a little bit of an angle. And what was happening was the outside of my right shoe around the ankle bone, it kept hitting it like every single step. And so that eventually just led to like a lot of like tenderness around that area, where with the mid tops, it was not an issue for me. Now, obviously this must have been just a personal issue for me because most people are wearing like those low cut running shoes, but I'm the one who's like bitching about it and having an issue. So so for me, I guess I learned I need mid tops or like, because I mean like for me in the military, like I've mid tops or higher, I've never had any issues with my feet ever. Ranger school, I wore the Garmont NFSs, not a single issue. Recycled mountains, used them in cert, no issue at all. But then switching to like a running shoe, that started giving me issues. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, I know now I need mid top or higher. I guess that's just the way I rock. But yeah, also those Ultra Olympus 5s, after like 70 miles, they were falling apart. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I just bought them, returned them, full refund, 1 out of 5 stars, would not recommend. But the other Ultras, if there's a couple, I love them. I still use them today. I like work out in them. I also switched to the toe socks and wide toe box as an experiment. Because I think I remember you talking about the toe socks, and then I like started looking at some science, air quote science. I don't know, but it made a lot of sense. Like the natural splay of your feet, like how are humans naturally shaped. I was like, you know what, I'll give this a shot. And I felt good, and now I'm a toe socks kind of guy and a wide toe box kind of girl. So,
yeah, well, the toe socks, as far as injuries go, those came out for me because of blisters, right? And this to keep those toes spread apart so they're not rubbing against each other.
That's gonna be spread apart, baby.
Okay, so let's talk about injury prevention. All right, so really quick, just the things that ended up helping us out. So for any newer hiker or even a seasoned hiker that's getting ready to do something for the first time in a while, there's obviously some proactive work you can do ahead of time. I think we both spent some time doing longer walks leading up to it. I had a hill by my house at the time that I would just go hike several times a week, as a mile or so straight up. So outside of the preparatory, let's talk about when we're on the trail. So, all right, technical difficulties, volume 3. Here we go. The camera's overheating. So time to buy a new camera, it sounds like. But what we left...
What is it? It's getting hot in here.
Apparently it was. So what we were talking about right before it cut off was injury prevention. So let's just kind of run through these real quick of what can a hiker do once they're on trail. So the proactive piece is going to be individualized. But once you're on trail, a couple quick things that would stick out to me. Number one is hydration and electrolytes. All right. So when we talk about cramping and then all these other injuries that could come from lack of hydration, I think people underestimate when you walk for 10 to 12 hours in a day, and the majority of it's in the heat of the day, and you're up, above tree line, like you're sweating.
Yeah, you're like 10,000, averaging 10,000 plus feet.
Yeah,
as far as altitude goes.
So water's huge, right? And that's actually one of the big logistic things that is kind of the advantage is if you know how to read a map the right way, you'll carry less water. But that's a side point. So hydration, electrolytes, right? So we used a lot of liquid IV. We used a lot of Noon tablets, simple Gatorade tablets, or packages, Propel, anything that has electrolytes in it that also gives flavoring. So that's another thing with the water, right? One of the ways that you'll drink enough water, which should probably be 4 to 5 liters, I would say, for the average person on trail. Giving some sort of flavoring to it is going to help get it down, especially with some of the questionable water sources you get from.
Dude, I really love the, I know it's not like, I want to say, I don't know how much the impact on hydration is, but the Crystal Light packs with caffeine, those are delicious, dude. Like, yeah. I'm a Crystal Light fanboy these days.
Yeah, and the caffeine is a big thing too.
It's motivating. I have a super low caffeine tolerance, so I just get wild, dude. It's like, fuck. All right, so I'm gonna walk a lot today, and I'm gonna like it.
So hydration, electrolytes, vitamins. So let's talk about that. I personally took some multivitamins and then super greens. So that's the thing I did on the AT the whole time is I pre-portioned out like individual servings of super greens and try to drink those almost every single day. Try to take a vitamin pack like a big multivitamin pack 2 or 3 times a week. Did you do the same?
I did a multivitamin, and my cousin that's knows a lot about this stuff gave me a couple recommendations. I picked one of the ones she said. Don't remember the name off the top of my head. I know it was like one of those natural plant-based ones. Apparently it's supposed to be good. And so multivitamin. And then I was like, because eventually like I'm like, my joints hurt. So then I got recommended this, I want to say it was like another natural thing, like turmeric plus something else, which also just happens to be kind of like a natural blood thinner. And so I think I got like 3 bloody noses, and I was like, maybe I should stop because they only happened after I started taking that. And there's no nose beers on the mountain, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think just sticking with for me, multivitamin. I think that's probably all I would do, because you don't need vitamin D because you're literally in the sun, especially at altitude. Like, dude, the amount of we got some cool tan lines, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's all I think.
Even I tanned.
Man, your ass roasted, boy.
Yeah. The importance, though, of, electrolytes is obviously your body is doing a lot more work than it's used to. You're carrying a pack. It's rested against your body. The amount that you're sweating is crazy. So replenishing that's huge. Vitamins, the reason we're taking those is to supplement what we're not eating, right? So when we look at a trail diet, it's very rare that you're going to get a salad. It's very rare that you're going to get anything that's not 5 years shelf stable. So your body's lacking a lot of that core nutrition. So supplements, don't need to overdo them. I agree with you. It's very simple, but do yourself the service and plus yourself up on what you're probably negligent on at that point. What else? So stretching. Stretching is going to be, you did a lot of it for your back. Back decompression and stuff like that. So whatever individual thing I would personally suggest, and this is hard to do, stretch in the morning, stretch at night. And it sounds like it's easy until you wake up and you're trying to blow out of camp. And then when you roll into camp and you're like, all I want to do is eat and lay down.
Yeah.
So, but
I think that's the biggest thing too. Like ever since, God bless Ranger Regiment, but if you're coming from a light infantry background, like you're going to have lower back issues. And yeah, I have to do like all sorts of back stuff all the time. So like that was one thing I definitely made sure to do all the time. But yeah, you're right, man. It's tough, dude, because you like wake up groggy or you just get home, you just get to camp, you want to eat, sleep, but take that extra time, you'll feel better. I know you brought a little cork ball.
Mm-hmm.
How often did you use it, honestly?
I didn't use it that often this time. I think I used it a lot more on the AT because I was just out there for such a longer time. I still carried it the whole time, maybe used it once or twice. It is a good tool to have. I used it a lot for rolling my feet out, but it's also a great thing when you take the pack off after 10 hours. You got a little knot in your shoulder and you can just like rest that against a tree, put yourself up against it. So very versatile. Did not use it as much as I expected. So cork ball was a good advantage. Leukotape is probably one of the biggest things that is going to help with blistering and any sort of abrasion-based thing in your feet a lot of the time. So Leukotape's a great tool to carry for through hiking. Anything else on injury prevention? Obviously, you're going to carry like some ibuprofen, a little bit of some sort of a pain reliever to an extent, but you got to be careful with all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, the other thing is I had on my trekking poles, I'm someone who's, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience hiking before this. So I got trekking poles and it was my first time using them. It took a few days to get into the groove of it, but I'm so thankful because like when your knees are getting jacked up, you're going to want to have that extra kind of like support and limb per se. But around my trekking poles, I put some 100-mile-an-hour tape or duct tape, I guess. And when we're having that issue with your heel, you were able to use that tape.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you ran out of like Leukotape, or that was before you had the, is Leukotape the same like the that you see the CrossFitters wear?
No, that's like K-tape.
But then you eventually got K-tape, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you were able to use the duct tape in place of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it held up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the duct tape was the thing I needed to keep it on my foot.
Yeah.
My foot was getting wet and stuff all day long, so it helped.
Yeah, but I think, dude, most of the stuff literally just goes back to, like, you need to do a test run,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, because you were all set. Like, there's a lot of things I missed. Like, sure, we're saying all this, but just get out there and actually like do a test run.
Yeah.
Like at least a 2 days, 1 night situation at the minimum, Saturday, Sunday type kind of action.
Yeah. So the only other thing that we had from week 1, just a fun little story, is the haunted teepee.
Oh, dude.
So that was like day 7 or 8, something along those lines.
Was that post Breckenridge?
I believe so.
I can't remember.
Actually, I don't know. It was something within that first week.
Remember when, was this week 1 or week 2? Kenosha Pass, was that week 1?
Yes.
Do you remember when we had the trail magic from your friends?
Yep. Shout out to James.
Dude, that was awesome. Because they took us into town, Kenosha. There was like 2 bars there, or 2 restaurants, and that was my first experience. We had like a couple drinks. Holy smokes, my alcohol tolerance gone. Like we get a couple drinks, we're like lit, like a fun kind of lit. I had a bloody and a canned wine. What did you drink?
Yeah, it was like a canned wine and a beer or something like that.
Yeah. And then when we got back on the trail, dude, we were like, we're just flying. Like we were just hauling. I don't know. It felt like, did we just do 5 miles? And like, what? Like, how are we crushing it? That was awesome. Yeah. Shout out to them. That was huge. Because Juna came out too, right?
Yep. It was James, Sarah, and Juna. So appreciate you guys and shout out.
Yeah. That was awesome. But then the haunted teepee. Yeah, it was just a structure in the woods. Definitely looked a little creepy.
Yeah, some weird Blair Witch. We found a campsite we were hiking. We hit our miles for the day. There were some campsites kind of near the trail.
Oh, they had families because it was on a weekend too, which were like, it was kind of annoying. I guess I began to understand the, I don't want to say hate, the lack of desire to be around day hikers, because it was like it was like, people, their children, loud, definitely. You're like, okay, if a bear is gonna come, and there's probably food out with these people, like that kind of situation. So I'm like, okay, I get why like through hikers are talking shit about day hikers. I get it.
Yeah. So we had to take like a weird little side trail quite a ways off the path, and then we found another little clearing, and we're like, all right, cool, we'll camp here. And then there was this weird teepee that was built out there, and it was some interesting Blair Witch type of activity going on in that area. But I just thought that was a funny little note because that was something that
we
stood out at the beginning.
Luckily, we didn't get nothing too spooky happened.
Yep. All right. So week 2, nothing crazy on here. So we have our first 0. We have the meteor shower, which was kind of a big deal that we were able to watch from that mountaintop. We had our first slack pack. And then we had our fun night at Broken Compass. So our first 0, so a 0, as Jaerett said, is a 0 miles clocked for the day. So traditionally what that looks like for Thru-Hiking is every 4 to 7 days, you'll take one full day off a lot of it is you're doing errands, right? You're shopping, you're doing laundry, you're showering, you're fixing your gear, resupply everything. So it's not always just straight downtime, but either way, you're not hiking. But sometimes in the towns, you end up walking like 10 miles just to get stuff done. So
yeah, dude. Yeah.
A 0 day, big thing I'd say on that is just to take them, right? They're fun. You need them as recovery, but the biggest thing that you're going to get out of a 0 day is deep in that community, right? You're going to spend really quality, fun time with random people that you don't know, and you'll get to know them a lot better over that beer or over that huge burger that you're going to get a little bit different than you do, at camp when everyone's super tired and just trying to go off and do their own thing. So we did our first 0 there in Breckenridge, which was awesome. I think that was like day 7 into day 8. Definitely were due. We'd done a little over 100 miles to get to that. Took a day off, which leads into our night at Broken Compass, and I'll probably throw in a quick little video on here of that. Talk me through that, because I think that was probably one of the first nights where you really got to see what does the trail life look like off of the trail, and why are people so drawn to this Thru-Hiker community, especially when you hit towns and stuff. So what was that night in Breckenridge like? So where do we stay? Fireside Inn?
We stayed at the Fireside Inn. Awesome place. Like, would definitely do it again in Breck. And we go, I think the night before, Gravity camped with us for the first time. So we were a trio at this point. We were definitely a trio at this point. The precipice of being a trio. But yeah, so we decided to go to Broken Compass because Gravity was like, yeah, man, went there like the night before, had a great time. Met the bartender. He's from New York also. Gravity's from New York. So they like, hey, bagels should be boiled or whatever they were talking about. And yeah, we go to Broken Compass, having a great time drinking there. The bartender, Jake, was like letting us try a bunch of drinks and got some stickers too. And then eventually we were playing like this, almost like a shuffleboard type game where like literally the length of the bar, which is pretty long. What was that, like 15 feet?
Uh-huh.
Did you say 15 feet? Pretty long, pretty wide. And what happened is he set up a backboard of glasses. And he was like, all right, the person, whoever gets closest to these glasses gets a drink. And so what you did is you take your glass of beer. It was empty, so I guess just an empty glass. And you just shuffled it, kind of threw it, tossed it, it's staying on the ground as close as you can to that glass backboard. And so we all were doing it, getting pretty close. One guy was like super, like half an inch away. I think mine was an inch away, and I thought I was going to get it. But then this other dude, I can't remember who threw it. There's this we're in Breckenridge, ski town, right? Like schmoozy, boozy, bourgeois type people. Like this couple came in, for sure, like had some money, and they're like sitting there with like a glass of wine or something, I don't know, or like a fancy beer, and they just like placed it on the bar counter. This dude, he throws his glass, crashes right into their drink, destroys the glass, and you just have like a bunch of dirty hikers in there having a great time, like hammered because their alcohol tolerance is nothing, and these people are like, oh god, what sort of place are we in? And it was awesome though. And then like towards the end of the night, I had no idea how many drinks we had. I have no idea, but we're like, hey man, like how much do we owe you? And he was like, he looks at us, $1, $2, $3 $3. He's like, yeah man. And we're like, dude, no, man, there's no way. Because we definitely had like a lot. And he's going to charge us $3. Unacceptable. So we gave him as much cash as we had, I think. Super cool dude. Awesome vibes. Like Broken Compass, supporting the Thru-Hiker community for sure. But then, yeah. And then that's when I was like, oh, dude, this is actually really cool. I really enjoy this. It's like we're all able to talk about, we're all doing the same stuff, like with all the people that are there, not all of them, most of them that are Thru-Hikers. And so we all initially have that initial connection because we're doing the same stuff. So easy to make friends then.
Yeah.
When you already have one thing for sure in common, and that one thing is something that's kind of difficult. So
I think it was cool, especially at that point. We had clocked over 100 miles. So I think you're feeling pretty comfortable at that point. You understand kind of the lay of the land, what the day looks like. You feel confident as a hiker. And I think that also helps like grow that community, is when you personally feel like you fit in the first place, then you'll start to commune with other people as well. I think that's probably one of the things that you dealt with at the beginning. You're like, well, I'm obviously not one of these hippies. Turns out you are, which is awesome. So
have you looked at your toe socks? You definitely are, bud.
Only other thing. So we did, two things. Slack pack. So just a quick thing for the new hikers. So slack pack means what you're going to do is you're going to have point A, point B. Someone's going to meet you at point A. They're going to take the majority of the contents of your backpack. So the majority of the weight, it'll be the non-essentials, whatever you need to camp that night. And they'll drop it off at point B for you. So you'll hike your full day with a lighter pack. Usually you're dropping at least 75% of the weight, which helps you pick up the miles. It also gives you kind of a little bit of a recovery just because you're dropping some of that weight. So we had our first slack pack from Breckenridge to Copper. Only other thing for week 2 is kind of interesting.
I think at first I was really concerned because I was like, wait, if we're slack packing, are we cheating? Like I was like, I don't feel like, I was like, oh fuck, are we like not authentic? Are we not real hikers by doing this? Right? I think, and at first I was concerned about that. But then towards the end, it's like, dude, we're also carrying a drone and camera shit. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So we're carrying, like you and I, because we eventually split this, we shared the load. So like, yeah, if anyone has anything to say, suck it.
Yeah. And I think that that is a thing in the Thru-Hiking community. You have like purist. You walk every single step of the trail. You don't take any alternates. A purist would do the collegiate east because that's the official trail, not the collegiate west. A lot of the time they're very averse to slack packing because, hey, I want to carry my whole thing the whole way. I get it. I have nothing bad to say against it. Different goals. I'm not here to prove to myself if I can carry the pack all the time. I'm here to prove to myself that I don't need to all the time. You know what I mean? Only other thing for week 2 was a little meteor shower that we watched. Nothing too crazy about that. It was kind of a big deal in Colorado. It was like a rare, once in a decade type of meteor shower. And it just so happened that we got ourselves up on a pretty high mountaintop, 10 or 11,000 feet, I believe. We were still kind of in the trees a little bit, but we did have a pretty cool, we stayed up late that night. We built a random little hobo fire just in between us, and we just kind of laid back on our, rain jackets or sleep pads, whatever we had out there, and we just, watched. And that's pretty cool. We stayed up late for it, and it was one of those extra things that we could have just avoided, but it was cool. So lesson to learn from that one is make the most of everything that's available to you. Even something as simple as a meteor shower is a cool event. All right. So week 3, we're going to start it off with the drone crash.
Oh God. Yeah, pretty much like what I would end up doing is, so I brought my drone the entire time, and I think the value that the drone brings, especially to these sort of hiking trips, is immense. Because most of the videos I've seen are like vlog style, GoPro. They have a GoPro. They're using their phone camera, or like I personally don't know if I've seen anyone through hike the entire thing with a drone. I have seen a lot of you'll see the drone work where it's like people are doing like a section or a 2-day, 3-day, that kind of stuff. I could be wrong, but we did the entire thing with the drone, so what's up? But I think the most important thing with the drone is it's able to capture like the enormity of what you're viewing, like the feeling of awe. Because when you're just shooting from eye level perspective with your camera, it just doesn't, the mountains don't seem as big. It has that kind of, that perspective is not there. And the drone is just able to be like, holy shit, this is massive. Because you actually, depending on the shots you're getting, you see how small you are and how big the mountains are. It's like, dude, we're going through, that's the Rockies. They're big, high elevation, like good stuff. But that led to, so I was flying the drone at least once a day. And then this one time, what I would do is like, say there's a pass, or I guess you could say a pass or a saddle, right? Where it's pretty much, if you're looking at it from left to right, you have a mountain/hill, it goes down into like a little valley, like a saddle, and then you keep going right, it goes up, 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 up to another hill. So you have that little pass right there. So what I would like to do is I'd get the drone right above the lowest point in the ground, and I'd go about 10 feet above. I'd take the drone backwards, and then I'd fly it as fast as it can go. So it looks like you're really close to the ground, when in reality, because of the lens, it's like 10 feet above. Well, I did it this one time and, went to the lowest point, got about 10 feet high, went back, and then went straight forward. And instead of making a perfect swooping shot, boom, right in the fucking rocks. And so, it still flew, but the gimbal arm was compromised. And dude, I was so mad at myself. That's the first time I've been flying drones since 2019, I think, or 2019. And that was the very first time I've ever had any incident with a drone in my career. And I was so poopy butt with myself. And I mean, it was a longer day too, it just stopped raining. We were supposed to chill by this lake, you know what I mean? Where instead of like resting, cause we were going to take an hour break, it started pissing on us. So then I was just in a bad mood, and then I'd crash it like an idiot. But that led us to scramble that night. Cause I was like, dude, I need a drone for this mission that we're doing here. And we were able to find a place to camp that night that had service. And there's a DJI store in Denver. I called them. I also switched from an Air 2S to a drone, a DJI Mini 3 Pro. Holy shit, the weight is so much less. It's significant, especially when it comes to hiking, when the classic saying ounces make pounds is real. So I bought it. I called them. I bought the extended kit with the extended batteries on it. And I had my roommate, Kayla, pick it up, and she was able to deliver it to us in Salida like the next day. Like, super thankful that she's so supportive and was able to like help us out. Huge. And
we love you, Kayla.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, was able to pretty much just, it's like, yeah, I can be sad about this drone that I crashed, but it's like, okay, like being sad is not going to do anything. So I pretty much I did all the research, like look at all my options, like Amazon shipping versus like having like paying for gas for somebody to come out, like luckily again, like leveraging the friend network. But yeah, it was awesome. Like, so glad. Switched the drones. The Mini 3 Pro made so much sense. Wish I would have switched to that immediately, because the weight reduction was huge. You're still shooting at 4K quality, and I'd say most people cannot tell the difference. If you have an eye for it, you definitely can. I think between the Air 2S versus the Mini 3 Pro, but I mean, no one's really gonna know,
Yep. So small hiccup.
Yeah, hurt a little bit in the pocket, but I was like, you know what, I need it for work anyway, so whatever.
And then you got it right back, thanks to Kayla.
Thank you.
So that brought us to Salida. So
yeah. Also, I want to talk about this real quick. I remember at first, when we first started this, because it's like we went out here with the objective of like, one, like creating content for this future soft trek, right? And then two was, you're like, I want you to experience the trail and like gain something from this, right? Like, that's what you wanted from me, like kind of like the joys you got from the AT. I want Jaerett to have that too. And I remember in the beginning, because we talked about this, I was like, dude, we're going so fucking fast, and I was like burning so much energy, and that was before we started sharing the weight. And I was like, are we doing this? I feel like I'm on a mission, like, is this an adventure or is this a mission? And to me, it felt like a mission. Like, I remember I'm like, dude, are we on a TFT right now with a offset movement every night? Like, because we're booking it, And for me, like, just balancing like creating content while also like finishing the movements, it was a lot, and eventually we figured that out. But at the beginning, that was definitely a stressor for me, like the whole mission versus adventure. That's kind of like how I look at it.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing that you helped pull me back out of. That's a default of mine, is to go into mission mode, so to say. And I'll quickly take something that I looked at very black and white and say, hey, this is going to help me. And then I start doing something different on accident. You know what I mean? And it did take you being like, what, are we here for the experience, or are we just trying to get done?
Yeah.
And that helped kind of pull me out of it and be like, you're right. I'm focusing too much on we have to make 19 miles tonight instead of 17 or whatever it may be. And yeah, that was a good lesson to learn. That's something I apply still after that to my life now, is trying to be like, am I going to mission mode? Am I losing sight of the enjoyment and the adventure of starting a new business, having a new relationship, friendships, moving, all that type of stuff? Like, am I complicating it by making it too much of a mission? So very good point. Salida, let's just talk about that real quick, because that was a pretty standout point. I think for me, I would assume same for you, that was like one of the real big initial visions of community on the trail and kind of the helping hand of the average citizen, which is one of the big things that a military vet will learn from the trail. So Salida was a fantastic time. Talk us through a little bit of kind of what you remember from that.
Yeah, so we go to Salida, have a, what was that called? Monarch Pass?
Yeah.
That's where we stopped, So we end up at Monarch Pass, and a lot of people, what they're doing, they're hitchhiking from Monarch. And we gave it like a half-ass attempt at hitchhiking. And then we were like, you know what? Like, we can just wait because like Kayla was coming down anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, but let's just wait. So then we get a couple canned wines, because that's, for some reason, that's the drink of the CT, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just feeling like, super, super litty, super good. Kayla picks us up. We go into town. We go to we stayed at
Simple Lodge and Hostel.
Simple Lodge and Hostel. Yeah, that was a good vibe, good place. Pretty much meeting up with everyone we've been seeing at that point. And then we all go out that night, have some drinks, like go around town. It's so funny because it's kind of like, it's like, yeah, we should use these nights to recover. And then you fast forward, you're hammered. Like, it's like, it almost feels impossible to resist the urge to like go out and party. There's something, I don't know, I guess because you've been doing something so hard, and you've been burning so many calories, like you're like, fuck it, I need a drink. I don't know. It just feels good. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels
work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play hard, and then complain about it the next day. I'm like, I didn't recover. Like, when I actually had a bed I could have slept in, and I can't figure out why I'm not recovering. Why do my knees still hurt? So yeah, you haven't slept in 20 days, but
every time we leave a town, we're not drinking anymore. 3 days later. I mean,
I could use a fucking beer right now. Yeah, literally every time we've said we say that every single time. But yeah, Salida was great. Went to all the cool, saw some live music, cool spots. I think we went there either like a Friday or Saturday, whatever day we ended up there. Met a really cool group of local people who like we hung out with the next day. Like we were with them at the river. That's where I got river rat from. And then did some long exposure photos with them later. Like, super cool.
Yeah, that was an awesome, just random group of people that we met, right? Shout out to Mermaid for really coming in clutch.
Yeah.
Because one of the friends that we met there, ended up giving us a ride a couple days later into Gunnison, and then helped us out with a couple other things, months after the fact. So I think for me, it was good to see that community piece. I was really happy for you to see it as well, because I knew that for your social side, that was something that would really help connect you to that trail type of thing. And it's just a good look on the everyday citizen and what they'll do. Obviously, we had people that gave us rides for money, and we had people that gave us rides for free, and everywhere in between type of situation, So it's a really cool thing to go out on a trail like that, especially as a vet. And most likely the mindset's going to be, I want to be out here by myself. And then you find yourself with a bunch of people you never knew that treat you great, take care of you, and are genuinely interested in what you're doing and your success. So I thought that was a pretty awesome point that stood out from the whole trail. Was Salida was probably the best town stop that we had as far as the community that we were able to work with there.
Well, I think Lake City also, like, yes, they had a great, as an older demographic, but they had a very good support of the thru-hikers. It's just that Salida was very, a little bit younger.
Yeah.
So that's also Lake City, very expensive, right?
Very expensive, but it's also kind of like...
oh, no, Silverton was the one that was, you're like, what is going... that grocery store?
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
That one was pretty wild. So, yeah, community's great. Anything else on Salida?
No, I don't think so.
Let's talk West and East Collegiate. That's kind of what comes next chronologically.
Well, actually, we skipped over Twin Lakes and the Windmar cabins.
I wasn't gonna start bashing, but go ahead.
Dude, oh my gosh. All right, so Twin Lakes is actually the stop before Salida, right? And the cool thing about like Twin Lakes is if you have a ride, which we did because Juna came down, we all stayed at the Windmar cabins, and the cabins were pretty cute. Nice.
Yeah.
They also had a bunkhouse. Not so nice. Like, not so nice as in, why are your tools on the ground? And why have you not vacuumed in 4 months? Like, why am I walking barefoot and I look at my bare feet and I can see like Cheeto remnants and like rice? I don't know, dude. It was whack. It was just like, it's one of those things where it's like you have this, I feel like they have, as a business, they have a really cool opportunity there to make it like pretty swanky, or even, I'm not even, okay, never mind. I take that back. I'm not even asking that. Dude, just vacuum your fucking floor, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just simple stuff where it's like, there's like a public laundry machine and I'm doing your laundry. Like, I like how to fold, I was folding their towels. Like, what? You know, I don't know, dude. Like,
that's one of the big things with through hiking is when you hostel hop, which
here's the thing.
Gonna do.
Okay, it was $45 a night. For $20, I wouldn't bitch. You know, but $45, come on, man, dude. Like, I'm on a bunk with some, like, I don't know, man. Like, just vacuum or something. It was a mess. Like, and it's not hard. Like, it really is not hard to just tidy up a little bit and just kind of, you're like, okay, this is kind of nice. But yeah,
it's gonna happen. I mean, that's part of the through hiker. The hostels they're gonna be good. They're gonna be bad. They're gonna be somewhere in between, and they're always gonna have traffic. And so the ones that do good, shout out to them because they're going above and beyond, because obviously people will still go to the less than,
because they have
perfect.
to.
Have to.
You know? I mean, actually, I guess maybe there would have been a different route we could have taken, but it's like you guys were staying there, so I'm going to stay there. You know, because I'm with you. Like the Fireside Inn in Breckenridge, awesome. Clean. Awesome beds. A decent price for Breckenridge, I'll take it, right? I can't remember what it's like $60 or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, but well worth it for what you got.
Yeah, very clean. They had a hot tub. We didn't use it, but we could have used it.
Yeah. All right, so West and East Collegiate. So traditionally on the Colorado Trail, it will follow the East Collegiate. So the Collegiate Loop is 168 miles, something along those lines. And it's near Twin Lakes, Salida. Can't remember what's on the southern.
I'd have to look at a map, honestly.
I'd have to look at a map as well. Either way, we decided to do the West Collegiate.
Because apparently it's more beautiful.
It's harder, it's longer, and it's worth it, right? Hope Pass, though, man, you pay for that right off the bat.
Oh,
so that was coming out of Twin Lakes.
That was sick.
Probably one of the hardest days, though, on trail, right?
Yeah.
Just coming out.
We saw this one through hiker who was also at Windmar cabins in the bunkhouse with me. And you saw her doing this. I think I was like
trekking poles.
Yeah, dude. What was she doing?
She was I was hiking behind her. She didn't realize I was coming up behind her, and she just had her trekking poles dragging against the ground. Wasn't like planting them. She was just like head down, trying to get up this hill, just dragging, scraping
the ground.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So the West Collegiates, again, a little bit longer, definitely more elevation, but beautiful. Very beautiful. I've heard the East Collegiate is easier, not as scenic, kind of looking out over like Salida the whole time, and Poncho Springs or whatever that is over there. West Collegiate's highly recommend. Can't do it if you're a purist, but if you want to do more miles and work harder, then do the West Collegiate.
Yeah, so overall, East Collegiate, the entire trail, like from for the Colorado Trail, if you take the East Collegiate, it's 486 miles. You take the West Collegiate, it is 491 miles.
Yeah. So nothing too much more to say about those, except that it's a suggestion. So now we're into the last week. So we'll kind of get ready to start wrapping things up here. So we started out kind of like, what was our mindset? So I have 3 things here to talk about. Lessons learned personally, gear lessons, which we kind of already covered, but we can tap a couple more of that, and then kind of what's next for Soft Trek. So lessons learned, I'm going to bring you back to something I told you the very first day on trail, and then I basically walked away from that plan. And I told you my plan for this trail is to learn how to serve God better, serve my future wife better, and to serve my community. And I was going through some stuff on the trail, so I don't know if I put as much effort and time into that as I wanted to, but that deep thought helped it come post-trail anyways. So I'd say for me,
Post-trail clarity.
Post-trail clarity. My personal lessons that I learned from this trail versus the AT was endurance and resiliency. I mean, the conversation that we were having, earlier today before we started filming, we talked a lot about the mistakes that I was making on the trail emotionally, right? I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, the same as when I stepped out on the AT, and I was working through that stuff. And what I realized is it took me several months after the trail to let all that sit because I didn't give it my full effort on the trail. So that's suggestion number one, is if you go out there to immerse yourself, don't get too distracted by the simple things that you have left behind on purpose. Commitment to family and friends is a big thing that I learned from it. I think our relationship came under a little bit of stress because of the logistical planning behind the business that follows this, right? And that's something that I dropped the ball on, but was able to learn from it. And the conversation today kind of put the final nail in what I needed to learn from that specific piece. So I have seen myself over the last handful of years from the AT to the CT be very inconsistent in my relationships. And the Colorado Trail, the conversations that we had that will be kept classified till eternity, where I talked about changing my life plans, that showed me my inconsistency in relationships and friendships, and my wall of where my commitment meets my humanness. And it's important to see that, because the reason I keep in life over the last handful of years, the reason I keep hitting this wall where my heart says serve, but my abilities reach a limit, is because I'm not being completely honest with myself. And one of the honest things is just to know that I'm a human that makes mistakes, and to know that other people are that as well. So to have grace for myself and grace for others. And that's been a lesson I've been learning this entire year. It started back in Oregon, and it's really cementing itself now that I've gone through this amount of excessive change in the last 4 months, moving and doing the trail, and then trying to get this business started on the tail end of it. So my biggest personal takeaway is consistency and endurance.
Nice.
What do you got?
No, that's good. Yeah. What are my takeaways?
Yeah.
Well, I think I went into this initially everyone kind of goes out here to seek some sort of clarity, or some sort of spiritual awakening, sexual awakening. And I found that. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I feel like I was just enjoying the experience. I don't know if I really thought too deeply about a lot of things, honestly. I kind of had a set list of things that I wanted to think about and wanted to figure out. I don't know if I figured it out on the trail, but what I did figure out, also, I didn't listen to music or podcasts or anything. I just walked and observed nature and was taking video, a lot of video. And I think it was nice. It was so nice being disconnected. I would be on my phone when we got to town, but other than that, not really. And I mean, I guess what I learned is I want to do more of this.
Well, I think that's
I didn't really I think there was some stuff where I'm, at this point in my life, I've been bouncing around. I've been away from my family for 9 years now. 6 years in the Army, and now 2 years, going on 3 years kind of out. And I know now that I want to get back to family, but it didn't really, I don't know. I thought, yeah, I guess I just assumed everyone's out here to unfuck themselves. But you can also just do a trail and have a great time and just, enjoy nature, hang out, get a good headspace.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it has to be, hey, I'm going to overcome this thing. I think what you said is equally as important, where it's like I found peace in removing myself from some of the speed of life, and I think that's something that guys that come from our community and then just younger guys like us is we get very caught up in the rat race of life. And the rat race can be jobs. It can also just be how much time you spend on your phone. It can be how much time you give to TV and whatnot, and you're not giving enough time to yourself or your own passion. Like what I heard when you were just talking now is, I don't feel like I really had that many issues, but I was able to reconnect with what my passion is. That's the same thing I'm trying to find from it, right?
Right.
Maybe I have to overcome a couple hurdles to find what that passion is, but I feel like that's kind of the status quo for the trail, is people go out there to find what their passion is. And sometimes passion means I want to be happy again, so I need to let go of this stuff. Or I just want to go out and remind myself that life is way simpler and I don't need all this extra stuff to be happy. You just need a camera and nature. I need time to walk and think. That's what makes me happy and makes me feel fulfilled is time. You know me, I'm a very overthinker, and having the space to overthink is helpful. You're an artist and your camera is your paintbrush, and you need a canvas, and your canvas is limited by some of the work that you do sometimes. And when you're out there in nature and you have nothing to report to, no expectation necessarily, and it's just you pushing your craft through your tool, I think that's awesome. And people are going to find that in different ways. You have a unique one, photography. Everyone carries cameras, but you're an actual photographer. And so you say you didn't find a whole lot out there, but it sounds like you found a lot. And similar to me, it takes time to process afterwards. That the Appalachian Trail, I hiked that 2 years ago. I finished it 2 years ago last month. I'm still learning lessons from that today. And some of them are just backlogged. And it'll be the same thing with the Colorado Trail. So I think you learned a lot. You grew. I mean, I saw a change in you. I saw a change in myself. It went from good to bad, and then kind of
it went from good to bad to evil.
That was short-lived. But yeah, so that's awesome, man. Let's wrap it up with a couple quick things. So gear list. We talked about some of the pieces of kit that we had bought. We could sit here and talk about gear for forever. The biggest thing I would say is ounces do make pounds. The money is worth the investment. So when you look at the gear purchase, be realistic. How much weight do you really want to carry? How much miles do you want to do? What are your comforts that you need? Do you need a sleep pad that's thick? Do you need one that's wide? As something that we'd figured out with you. Do you need something to keep you warm at night? Do you need something to cool you down in the day? So gear is all over the place. The biggest thing is do your research. Don't get too pigeonholed into what everybody says on YouTube. You will do a little bit of trial and error, but error on the side of light and expensive will be harder to go wrong. A lot of people will attempt to save a little bit of money by doing this or that, and then all they're doing is making themselves more miserable unknowingly throughout the entire day. So gear, we could do an entire separate podcast potentially, or maybe a video breakdown of what we took would be a good idea, but that'll be something for the future. Anything else on gear for you?
No, I mean, I think pretty much like what I wrote down for lessons learned. Test run your gear. Already talked about that. Don't cheap out. Just talked about that. Learn how to sleep. That was one of my issues. Like, yeah, I switched to sleep pads halfway through because I discovered like I'm a side sleeper more so. And I went from a thermarest, which just wasn't wide enough because I kept like waking up, falling off, and then switched over. We were in Gunnison, and I couldn't. My only option really for like a wide one was a foam mattress, not mattress, but foam pad, and it worked. It wasn't the most comfortable, but it was a little bit wider. It was better. It helped me, but I'm still not there yet. So I still need to learn how to sleep outdoors. And then for don't go home, which we already talked about that too, because you don't want to visit home while you're doing one of these long trails and then you get caught up with some foolishness.
So let's talk about what's next, and we'll kind of wrap it up on that. So let's talk about what's next for you, what's next for me, and then what's next for Soft Trek. So give us a quick recap of kind of what your years look like over at E&E.
Yeah, so my photo video business, E&E, been pretty busy this year, like traveling a lot, all that kind of stuff. It's great. And next year, I'm definitely going to start pushing out some more personal content, I would say. Like we're going to have the Colorado Trail, like probably a 4-part series, because I took a ton. I think I have like 500 gigs of footage. It's all 4K. It's going to be pretty cool. A lot of like visually cool stuff. I'm excited to share it. So that'll be coming out early next year. And then like doing this adventure, I was like, I have to do at least one major adventure a year. And I think that's for me, like, okay, that's what I realized, like maybe I wasn't giving it the credit I was supposed to, but here's what I learned doing the Colorado Trail is like in the military, special operations, you do some of the coolest stuff like in the world. And like me being a combat photographer, I was involved with so much stuff, and I got to see a lot of amazing things, cool experiences, all that kind of stuff. And since I've been out, I really haven't done anything like to that level of cool. When I say cool, I mean like you have like 1/60th dudes flying a 47 and you're about to hit the X. Like what's cooler than that? Nothing really. But doing like something like the Colorado Trail, where you're out there on an adventure where you're physically testing yourself, you're mentally testing yourself. And for me, I have a camera out there. So how can I document this and make it look amazing? Like that's a great challenge, and that's an adventure. That's what I love. I love to do adventures, right? So that's what I learned. I need to do at least one major adventure a year. So it's either going to be the Trans-American Trail, which is a motorcycle trip on back roads from North Carolina, the coast of North Carolina, from east to west, all the way to Oregon, the west coast, so coast to coast, or a longer hike, whether that is like the John Muir Trail maybe, or the El Camino, or the Arizona Trail, or so, I don't know. Something. I don't know if I want to do I don't want to do like an AT or a CDT or a PCT yet, just because it's very time consuming. I'm down for like a sub 2 month adventure, I think. Like the Trans-American Trail, a month or less, depending on how fast you crank it. And then like the Arizona Trail, I think is 2 months.
Like 700-ish. So yeah, it would be a month and a half, 2 months.
And then I think that there's the Pacific Northwest Trail too. I don't know if that's 1,000. I have to look. I can't remember.
I can't remember what it is
But yeah, Gravity was saying that one looks pretty cool too. So, I mean, that's what, like going forward, that's really what I learned. Yeah, boom.
So we're going to see a lot more of like that adventure style media versus just you're working for other businesses type of thing.
Correct.
Awesome. That sounds great. Let's see, for Asymmetric Alliance Group, we officially open for business as of October 2022. So now we're open to the public. A lot of our work you can find on asymmetricalliancegroup.com. You can find that link also on the podcast Instagram page at the Anvil Hour. But we'll be running out all kinds of defensive-based training and leadership consulting coming into 2024. So pretty excited for that. Now what's up for Soft Trek? Okay, so we're in December of 2023. We're approaching the spring hiking season. So what's next with Soft Trek is our goal is to put some transitioning vets out on a trail this coming spring. So we got a couple different channels of how we're going to try to push that. You're going to be releasing your series of the Colorado Trail, and then we'll be working on a couple other video projects to bring it back to that as well. But our goal this coming year, 2024, Soft Trek, is to build awareness, spread the word in the cause, and build a community around the service members so that we can serve the service member. So ideally, we can do some test runs this coming spring, and then going into the summer, we probably will be able to kick some guys out onto the Colorado Trail as well. And then hopefully we'll have done enough research during this 2024 season to understand what the formula looks like, and then start producing it on a larger scale and keep helping out our boys.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just understanding the business considerations, like that sort of logistics right there. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to dial in, because it's like media-wise covered, Like we already have like a proof of concept video, like we have the raw material just waiting. But yeah, just kind of understanding the fine print per se.
Mm-hmm. This is a call to action to everybody that is interested in helping out your fellow special operations veterans. You know anything about running a nonprofit? Hit your boy up. All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure once again. Appreciate you making the trek down to here, and time to go eat some dinner.